let's get into some climate change news. More on what we were talking about yesterday from Mike Rantanen. Mika, excuse me. How much faster is the Arctic warming than the global average locally? Up to 5 times faster, but in general 3 to 4 times faster. So we were saying yesterday it's warming almost 4 times faster, but in some places 5, almost 5. Craziness. Let's move on to this story. So apparently there was a huge beach outing in the UK. It was, very warm in the UK, and people went out to the beach and got all cozy. A lot of people are kind of wondering about the wisdom of that, but anyways. This is from Steve Westlake. Good news. Many of those who dropped litter have bought litter offsets that will, with luck, stop other littering in the future. That's hilarious. Some said they are confident negative litter technologies will clear up lots of litter in a few decades' time. So, good bit of humor there from Steve Westlake, relaying or equating litter with carbon. But let's look at this story a little more. Tons of rubbish left behind on Bournemouth Beach by sunseekers on the hottest day of the year. The health secretary warned beaches will be closed if people ignore social distancing rules, which it looked like they pretty much were. For a second day in a row, tons of rubbish was left on Bournemouth Beach after the hottest day of the year saw thousands of Brits flock to the coast and a major incident called. Pictures of the aftermath on the Dorset beach this morning showed piles of plastic bags, bottles, and takeaway boxes strewn across the sand. Oh, don't you love humans? Those climate aware Brits, right? They're really showing us how to do it. Cartridges that contain nitrous oxide gas littered the beach promenade, and some of the bins appeared to be empty despite piles of rubbish that were dumped near them. Wild. The UK saw its hottest day of the year with the mercury rising to 33.4 C at Heathrow. Good golly. It's in the 90s, right? The heat wave saw thousands of people flock to the south coast, resulting in a major incident being declared and government experts warning people against gathering in large groups. Yeah, so nice of people to just get out there and litter away. Just litter at will. Another Bournemouth resident said on Twitter that he was furious to find rubbish only meters away from bins. He urged people to take their rubbish home and maintain our golden coastline. Kentucky Fried Chicken there, yep, and good eating. Yep. Even those on the Isles, the British Isles, love them some fried chicken. It comes after Bournemouth Beach was awash with rubbish on Wednesday after sun worshippers flocked to the coast. The council said 33 tons of waste was cleaned up along the full stretch of coastline on Thursday morning, in addition to 8 tons collected between the piers. How very lovely. So, yeah, first world countries and first world people, just showing the rest of the world how it's done. Litter away. Litter like it's 1999. Because truly, everything's fine. We're fine, guys. We're good. We don't, climate change. Judy Truitt says people are flocking to the mountains here and leaving all sorts of trash. Yeah. Remember when I said I think some areas of the planet should be off limits to humans? That's why. I know all the avid, naturalists and botanists and hikers and lovers of the planet. I know all you guys are really careful, but it's not you guys. It's all the other people too. They literally littered. Yes, they did. I mean, I love me some nature, and everybody else does too. But question is if we can love nature without bringing all the other people that kind of don't care about nature along with us. I know that's very elitist of me. Or I'm feeling like the words coming out of my mouth sound kind of elitist, but whatever. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry it was really loud. Thank you for the tip. Forgot about that. Got it. Got you guys. Thank you. I know it was probably loud. Even Mount Everest is full of trash. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got the sound. I already fixed it. I turn it up so I can watch, so I can give you guys sound on the videos, and then I forget to turn it down. That's me not wearing all the, not being able to put on the producer hat. Yes, Raza, yes, I got you. Thank you. Anyways, let's move on. Oh, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. I just closed a tab instead of going to it. Hold on. Where am I? Sorry, guys. I just lost something that I really wanted to talk about. And I don't know where it went. I don't know. Hold on, guys. One moment. Yeah. Where are you? Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh. Sorry about that. You're getting all the beeps and all the whistles. And here we go. All right. So, climate crisis making world's forests shorter and younger. Study finds rising temperatures, natural disasters, and deforestation taking heavy toll, say scientists. Climate breakdown and the mass felling of trees has made the world's forests significantly shorter and younger overall. I was just reading an article about this, was it a couple weeks ago in British Columbia. The trend is worldwide, by the way, not just in certain areas. The trend is expected to continue, scientists say, with worrying consequences for the ability of forests to store carbon and mitigate the climate emergency, and for the endangered wildlife that depends on rich, ancient forests. The analysis of more than 150 previous studies found that the death rate of trees has increased, really now, doubling in North America and significantly increasing in the Amazon, for example. You say that the death rate of trees has increased? Whoa. That's new news. The impact of forest destruction had cut the area of old-growth forest by a third since 1900. Only a third? Well, then we're fine then. We're fine. We're doing okay. Everything's fine, guys. We're okay. But rising temperatures caused by global heating also cuts growth and increases tree deaths by limiting photosynthesis and causing stress. Furthermore, high temperatures, drought, high storm winds, and pests and disease affect older trees more and are all on the rise. Tom Pugh, a scientist at the University of Birmingham, UK, said, "Our study reviews mounting evidence that climate change is accelerating tree mortality, increasingly pushing the world's forests towards being both younger and shorter. They have been getting smaller and younger over the last century, primarily because of the effects of human land use change, primarily, and disturbances like wildfires and insect outbreaks and droughts. These are things that are increasing in frequency and severity. There were exceptions, Pew said, such as forests and high latitudes, but in a world that's generally hotter, more of the world will be covered by forests that are generally shorter. There you go. More climate destruction by humans. By who? Humans. I don't know if we can call this climate change news, but, anything that's about the fossil fuel industry, collapsing or going away, I'd call that climate change news. Texas oil industry faces prospect of collapse amid COVID-19 losses. Can I get a woo woo? Oil and gas producers are trying to reopen after a devastating halt, but pessimism about an economic recovery is widespread. Jeffrey Latea finally got his first unemployment check this week, a whole month after he was laid off again. The 34-year-old resorted to government assistance to cover his bills after losing his second job in the Texas oil and gas industry just 6 weeks into it. My first company laid us off to stabilize their balance sheet, the oil worker said matter-of-factly. I was able to secure a temporary position with another inspection company in Pasadena with a turnaround. They started doing layoffs after the first week, so I knew it was coming, but not that fast. Latea is among tens of thousands of workers across Texas, America's largest oil-producing state, who have lost their jobs since coronavirus shutdowns dried up demand. The shutdowns have led to apocalyptic headlines proclaiming that the state could lose 1 million jobs and at least $24 billion by the end of the year. Oil and gas companies have paused or curtailed production and halted capital expenditures to conserve cash, leading to mass layoffs as the world shut down. In April alone, the industry shed a historic 26,300 jobs in Texas. Well, yeah, it sucks. It sucks to lose a job in the oil industry, I guess, if that's your industry. I kind of blame this on the fact that we're being misinformed and miseducated about climate change, or miseducated and misinformed about the future of an oil economy, miseducated and misinformed about the viability of industrial civilization to continue going on and on like everything's normal, or like we expect it to go on and on as. If look, this is just some information for you. If you're in the oil industry right now, you should get out immediately. Just like if you live in Miami, or if you live along the coast in Louisiana, you should probably sell your house and move away. If you're in the oil industry, you should probably look for another job. I won't say learn to code. I just said learn to code. I'm joking, by the way. There are other industries out there. There are other jobs out there. I know some of them are not so great. But, to continue to work in the oil industry is kind of, at this point, especially right now, especially with the what's happening in the oil markets, I'd say that's a losing proposition. So you should probably look for other work immediately. Just a tip, you know what I'm saying? Just some information about the viability of working in the oil industry in the coming years. I don't know what to say. But that, again, people need to be talking to people. People need to be letting people know, like, hey, look, fossil fuel is on its way out. Not just because of green growth, or not just because of renewables, because there's a thing called peak oil, because it's very, very likely now that many oil companies will collapse due to the pandemic and due to the oil glut and due to the markets. So this is going to be a very bad industry to be in. And then, there's people that care about climate change, and we're all sitting around going like, Are you guys, are you guys going to, go ahead and collapse already? Right? When are y'all going to collapse already and leave the planet alone and stop destroying the planet? Anyways, yes. I know a lot of us still use oil in our daily lives because we have to, because the entire system was designed to use oil in our daily lives. And so it's really hard to not use oil. I understand all of that. But I'm just saying more and more people are going to become aware of this and stop using oil, as much as they possibly can. And then what's going to happen to the oil industry is that nobody is going to want this thing that people are making. But whatever. We only have a couple years left of of whatever it is we think that normal is now. So yes, Hapsutaki, I saw something about that. Our National Radiation Safety Board will issue a statement this Tuesday on the elevated radiation levels I was talking about. Yeah, I saw something about that. Actually, I might have it right here. Maybe I don't have it right here. So sorry. Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, let's talk about this for a moment. Mysterious radiation spike detected over Scandinavia. It may have come from a nuclear power plant in Russia. Radioactivity levels have spiked in the atmosphere over northern Europe. Excuse me one second. They've spiked over northern Europe, and that could indicate damage at a nuclear power plant in western Russia. According to a Dutch health agency that has analyzed the data, the radioactive spike suggests damage to a nuclear fuel element. Wow. However, the Russian nuclear power operator, Rosenergoatom, I'm not even close, has denied problems related to facilities in Kola and Leningrad, the two nuclear plants operating in the region, according to TASS. A Russian news agency, as reported by the AP. Several Scandinavian watchdog agencies detected the elevated levels of radionuclides or radioactive isotopes. I don't know what's going on here. Or radioactive, isotopes. Radionuclides are atoms whose nuclei are unstable. The excess energy inside the nucleus gets released through radioactive decay. The radionuclides are artificial, that is to say they're man-made. The composition of the nuclides may indicate damage to a fuel element in a nuclear power plant, said an official with the National Institute of Public Health and the Environment in the Netherlands, which analyzed the isotope data, said on Friday. That's concerning. That this happened, didn't this happen like a year ago too? Maybe last year, something akin to this. There was like a cloud of radioactivity kind of floating over Europe. They couldn't figure out where it was from. Anyways, we'll keep an eye on this story. If you guys could remember to like the video, we can get a few more people in here before the end. And if you are new to the channel, please remember to subscribe. All right, let's get into what the title of this video is about. And this is an article from Truthout. Again, this is something that I've been saying we should do absolutely in the face of climate change. This would be the first thing that any climate change aware, president-elect might do. It won't happen with, obviously, either of the candidates we have now in the race. But if you were, a person that had a couple of brain cells rolling around in your brain and you understood that climate change was a very real, distinct, and an event, a catastrophe that is close at hand, then you would take emergency action in the face of this knowledge. And you do something like this. It's time to nationalize the fossil fuel industry. This is from June 26th. The COVID-19 pandemic's impact on the economy provides a golden opportunity for creating a fairer, more just, and sustainable world as it shatters long-held assumptions about the economic and political order. Its impact on the energy industry in particular can boost support for tackling the existential threat of global warming by raising the prospect of nationalizing and eventually dismantling fossil fuel producing companies. Yes, a position argued passionately by one of the world's leading progressive economists, Robert Pollin, distinguished professor of economics and co-director of the Political Economy Research Institute at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. Actually, this was proposed by one Bernie Sanders when he was in the presidential race. He suggested that we should or could do something like this in the face of climate change. Anyways, this is a bit of a interview. It has been argued by many that the coronavirus pandemic is a game changer for numerous industries and could change the way we work and the way... Sorry about that. I don't know why I'm getting so many disturbances right now. I'm trying to do video. We could only see the possible return of the social state and thus the end of austerity. Also see the possible return of the social state and thus the end of austerity. First of all, are there any comparisons to be made between the current health and economic crises and what took place during the Great Depression? Robert Pollin says there is one big similarity between the economic collapse today and the 1930s Great Depression. That is the severity of the downturns in both cases. The official U.S. unemployment rate coming from the Labor Department as of May 2020 was 13.3%. But a more accurate measure of the collapsing job market is the number of workers who have applied for unemployment insurance since the lockdown began in mid-March. That figure is 44 million people, equal to about 27% of everyone in the current U.S. labor market, employed or unemployed. By contrast, during the Great Recession of 2007 to 2009, official unemployment peaked, and for 1 month only at 10%. However, between 1930 and 1939, U.S. unemployment averaged about 18%, peaking at nearly 25% in 1933. The obvious difference between the 1930s and now is that the 1930s figure is an average over 10 brutal years. Our current severe job market is not going to last for 10 years. It can only last for a few more months before the official unemployment rate gets to something like the more benign levels of Great Recession years, i.e. only 8 or 9%. Still, since the March lockdown, the severity of the unemployment crisis has been comparable to the 1930s. This brings up the single most critical point of contrast between the 1930s and today. That is, we could have easily seen a decade-long economic depression now, except for the fact that the federal government today has intervened to an unprecedented extent to counteract the depression, while in the 1930s the government did not intervene at the necessary scale until World War II. The list of ways in which orthodox economists And government policymakers today are clueless is very long indeed, but they have at least figured out that to stave off a 1930s level depression, you pump massive amounts of money into the economy. For now, this has thus far included the so-called CARES Act, which passed Congress and Trump signed in March. This was a $2 trillion injection, equal to about 10% of the overall U.S. economy. And still more important, Federal Reserve bailout funds for big corporations and Wall Street to the tune of something like $5 trillion, 25% of GDP and counting. Without the CARES Act and Federal Reserve bailouts, we could easily be looking right now at a replay of the 1930s. Things are bad enough as it is, of course. Plus, it is clear that the federal government funds are largely being stuffed into the pockets of corporations instead of where they are needed, spending on public health in the midst of a pandemic no less, as well as public education and direct support for workers, and the poor are getting short shrift as usual. The oil and gas industry has been particularly hard hit during the coronavirus pandemic. In that context, some, including yourself, have argued quite passionately that the time is ripe for nationalizing the fossil fuel industry. What would be the advantages of doing so? And how could we finance the transition to a sustainable energy future? Paulin says the underlying issue here is that according to the thoroughly mainstream and highly cautious projection of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we, the residents of planet Earth, have 30 years total to achieve net zero carbon dioxide emissions to have a reasonable chance of avoiding the most severe impacts of climate change. Well, golly, that'd be great if we had actually 30 years total. Some people would say we only have 10 years. In terms of heat extremes, heavy precipitation, droughts, floods, sea level rise in biodiversity, and the corresponding impacts on health, livelihoods, food security, water supply, and human security, there's no avoiding what this means, which is that the global fossil fuel industry simply must be put out of business within the next 30 years. It actually must be put out of business today, right now, or at least within the next 5 years, if we have any chance whatsoever. So 30 years, way too long to be, playing footsie with fossil fuel companies and saying like, well, yeah, maybe, maybe we'll phase you guys out in the next decade or two. You know what I'm saying? This is for the simple reason that burning fossil fuels to produce energy is what spews CO2 in the atmosphere, and is therefore the primary cause of climate change. The need to put an end to the fossil fuel industry remains an imperative regardless of whether the industry is facing financial difficulties, as they are at the present, or swimming in profits. Everyone on the planet simply has to stop burning oil, coal, and natural gas to produce energy. We can, of course, take it as a given that the fossil fuel companies will fight fiercely, using every single tool at their disposal to keep themselves alive. And that's why you can't give them 30 years. You can't say in the next 30 years, because they will absolutely just stay in business until the very last year of those 30 years. And even then, after 30 years, they'll be, well, we got a few more billion barrels of oil to pump over here in this well. For that reason, probably the best way to defeat the fossil fuel companies, at least in the U.S., is for the federal government to buy them. That would bring the companies under public scrutiny and control, which should, in turn, create a clear path for giving them more than what they actually deserve, which is a well-thought-out plan, a relatively painless death over the next 20 years or so. Well, let's read a little bit more, but, I'm not going to read much more of this. Now, as it so happens that the U.S. and global oil industry is experiencing a severe crisis at present, unrelated to climate change issues, the current crisis has resulted from the collapse of demand for energy resulting from the pandemic and recession, and even before this, in early 2020, an oil price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Thus, the global price of oil fell by more than 50% in early 2020 before the onset of the pandemic. Reflecting these developments, a report on March 26 by the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas presented a bleak outlook for the oil industry over the near future, stating that industry layoffs and bankruptcies and lower U.S. crude oil production seem inevitable. It's time to get out, people, whether you're, just a regular dude in Texas working in the oil industry, or whether you're an investor or CEO or anybody, it's time to get out today, right now. Given these conditions, the U.S. oil and gas industry has been a major recipient of bailout funds to keep the sector alive. But why should we keep these industries alive in the first place, since they absolutely must be phased out within the next 20 years anyways? I'm not going to read any more of this. But the point is valid. The point is well taken. The point is important. And this absolutely needs to be taken up as a national conversation, a political conversation. Will it? Obviously, chances are very, very little in the next year or two. But, the times they are changing, right? Just in the last month, we've seen the adoption, or at least the awareness of way more radical ideas than people were willing to talk about. And also because of the pandemic as well. But very radical ideas have made their way into the mainstream conversation. So there's absolutely no reason why we can't do this with the fossil fuel industry as well. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below: PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.